The Big Ten is making a big switch. The conference is changing course and will now kick off the football season this fall. The new announcement comes just weeks after they postponed games to spring. Of course, many of us are so excited about the games being back, but we also have questions about the health and safety of this decision. Here to talk more about this is our 9Health expert, Dr. Payal Kohli. Good morning, Dr. Kohli. Thanks for joining me. So let's talk about medical protocols. What has been put in place to allow for this kind of switch?
So, Natasha, I want to be clear just by prefacing my comments by saying that I do think a big part of this switch is driven by political pressure and not necessarily by changes in medical advances. Having said that, however, there are a couple of key things that have been instituted that I do think will make it safe for this type of activity to occur. So the first is daily antigen testing. So every player who's on the field is going to get tested with the rapid antigen test, and anyone who tests positive will then have confirmatory testing with the PCR nasal swab. This is huge because it really does help to identify those people who are sick and rapidly isolate them. The second is a chief infection officer on every team that's going to be reporting trends, and if their positivity rates are greater than 5%, the team is actually going to be taken out of play and practice for at least a week. And then the third is that any player who tests positive will have to wait at least 21 days and undergo a comprehensive cardiac workup before returning to play because of concern of possible myocarditis.
You've talked a lot about heart complications from COVID-19. We've had that conversation several times. Is that still a concern for players?
You know, it is still a concern for players, and that's one of the reasons they've instituted that waiting 21 days and undergoing a cardiac workup before returning to play. But I will say that since that study came out in the Journal of the American Medical Association, the medical community has really been divided about how to interpret the study. So on one hand, we have the people who initially came out and said, there looks like cardiac inflammation. We don't know what this means, and it could be very serious, so we need to take it seriously. But on the other hand, there are a lot of doctors and experts who are saying that perhaps this type of cardiac inflammation occurs even after the flu or after a bad cold, and we're just looking so carefully, and that's why we're finding it. And you know, clinically it's not going to manifest itself. So the jury is still a little bit out exactly what to make of that myocardial inflammation or that heart inflammation, but I do think when it comes to sports we need to take it seriously.
You kind of touched on this at the beginning of this interview, but as a doctor, what do you think about this reversing course?
You know, I'm really torn, to be honest, because on one hand, we're hearing that college sites are the biggest places for outbreaks. The Big Ten colleges have over 8,500 cases reported. And so that certainly makes this a little bit, risky to do at a time like this. But on the other hand, I think if we can't successfully demonstrate that these players can be brought back safely, this may create a blueprint or a map for the rest of our society to be brought back safely using testing. And testing is just such an important way for us to start to get back to our lives safely that I think it may be a step in the right direction.
All right, Dr. Kohli, thank you so much.